Coming up in our newscast tonight. America's top envoy for North Korea arrives in Seoul after wrapping up his trip to Pyeongyang. From concrete denuclearization measures to lifting of sanctions, Biegun is believed to have negotiated with his North Korean counterpart a deal that can be mutually satisfactory ahead of another historic bilateral summit. On February 8, 1919, Korean students in Japan issued a declaration calling for Korea's independence from the oppressive Japanese rule. Commemorative ceremonies were held in Seoul and Tokyo to mark the milestone moment that paved the way for the historic March 1st independence movement. A lineup of special events are taking place to celebrate the first anniversary of the Pyeongchang Olympic Winter Games, which helps set the tone for reconciliation between the two Koreas. They include a peace concert in Gangneung and the Pyeongchang Peace Forum. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. Daniel Che. Working level talks between North Korea and the U.S. for the second Kim-Trump summit have wrapped up, and the special representative for North Korea, Biegun, is now in Seoul. For more, let's go straight to our Park Hee-jun, who is standing by at the Foreign Ministry. Hee-jun, what do you have for us at this hour?
Daniel, Seoul's Foreign Ministry has confirmed that Biegun has returned from Pyeongyang. An American military aircraft carrying the U.S. delegation landed at the U.S. airbase in Asan around 7 p.m., roughly an hour ago. Since his departure to the north on Wednesday, Biegun has 3 days to negotiate the details of the upcoming Vietnam summit with his North Korean counterpart, Kim Hyuk-chol. The State Department originally announced that his visit to Pyeongyang would only be a one-day affair. However, Biegun's extended stay could be an indication of substantial talks on a number of key topics ahead of the scheduled summit between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. And that mostly likely involves finding concessions that can satisfy each of their demands. Washington has called for concrete steps toward complete, verifiable denuclearization and the dismantling of North Korea's missile inventory. Pyongyang, on the other hand, has been demanding the U.S. to remove its economic sanctions on the regime. We don't know yet how much progress the U.S. delegation has made on all of these fronts as it returns from North Korea. A detailed agreement on these issues is seen to be essential to ensure the success of the upcoming summit. For now, we'll have to wait for other announcements that follow, which may even include the exact venue for the summit in Vietnam. And before flying back to Washington, Biegun is expected to share the results of the Pyongyang negotiations with his South Korean counterparts Lee Do-hun and Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa on Saturday. According to a Foreign Ministry official, Biegun has promised to brief the South Korean government first on the details of what was discussed in Pyongyang. He's also likely to brief his Japanese counterpart. And according to Japan's Kyodo News, Tokyo's top nuclear envoy, Kenji Ganasugi, is scheduled to visit Seoul on Friday to meet Lee Do-hun and Biegun during his stay. He will then return to the U.S. on Sunday. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Hee-jun, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. Now turning to the latest on Washington and Beijing's ongoing trade dispute, it looks like the two sides may not be striking a deal to resolve the months-long battle anytime soon. According to our Lee Seung-jae, a meeting between the leaders of U.S. and China is not likely to happen before the March 1st deadline.
Speculation that U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet in Vietnam was shut down by U.S. officials on Thursday, who say it's unlikely the two leaders will meet before the March 1st deadline set by the two sides to reach a trade deal. However, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow remained optimistic, telling reporters that the leaders of the two economic powerhouses could still meet later.
Well, the president has said a number of times that he expects to meet with President Xi on trade. When and where is totally up in the air at the moment. Does it depend on the meetings this week? I wouldn't want to say one way or another. It might. Hopefully the meetings will go well.
President Trump on Tuesday, during a State of the Union address, said any new trade deal with Beijing must include real structural change to end unfair trade practice, as the U.S. continues to press China to make major reforms. Trump has vowed to increase U.S. tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese imports to 25% from the current 10% if the two sides cannot reach a deal by March 1st. Watchers say the U.S. does not want to hold talks with China in Vietnam to show that its focus currently lies on the hotly anticipated second summit with North Korea. They add that any misunderstandings that could arise from meeting with China in Vietnam could lead to a negative impact on denuclearization talks with North Korea. From the upcoming second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to the March 1st deadline, the next few weeks will be intense for Trump and his administration. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has approved a visit by civic groups to Geumgangsan Mountain in the north for a joint New Year's event with North Koreans. According to the Unification Ministry on Friday, some 260 South Koreans will attend the event at the North's Mount Geumgangsan Resort next Tuesday and Wednesday. One of the civic groups is the South Korean Committee for Implementation of the June 15 Joint Declaration, which advocates for more exchanges with the North. They were formed after the two Koreas held their first ever summit back in the year 2000. 22 officials from Hyundai Asan will travel to North Korea's Geumgangsan Mountain over the next 2 days. The visit is to hold a ceremony to mark the 20th anniversary of the firm's establishment. Pyeongyang may also send officials from its Asia-Pacific Committee to attend the event. Hyundai Asan spearheaded the tours to Geumgangsan Mountain and the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex until the projects broke down in 2008 and 2016, respectively. Seoul's Unification Ministry clarified that the company's visit today has nothing to do with resuming South Korean tours to the mountain. The UN Security Council approved a sanctions waiver for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies to provide medical equipment and other humanitarian aid packages to North Korea. The exemption allows the Red Cross to send more than 90 types of goods worth around $105,000 to the reclusive state. They include gauzes, bandages, and other medical devices. With the UNSC's latest approval, a total of 10 sanction exemptions are now in effect to maintain the flow of humanitarian aid to the regime. The waiver will be valid for 6 months and will expire on July 30th. Seoul and Washington will sign a preliminary agreement on defense cost sharing this Sunday. That's according to a diplomatic source here in the nation. Initial reports indicated South Korea will pay around $915 million, though the deal will only cover this year. The Trump administration is believed to have demanded an annual sum of around $1 billion. Earlier in the week, the U.S. State Department said the allies had reached an agreement in principle, but gave no details. Today marks the 100th anniversary of Korean students in Japan declaring independence from the country's oppressive rule. Hong Yu shows us how this historic movement was remembered through special ceremonies both in Seoul and Tokyo.
On February 8, 1919, 600 Korean students who were studying in Japan walked out onto the streets of Tokyo and shouted cheers for Korea's independence. They read out a declaration justifying Korea's independence and expressed their determination to fight against rule by Imperial Japan. That declaration was a catalyst for the historic March 1st independence movement that occurred a few weeks later. On Friday, to celebrate the February 8th declaration, commemorations were held at the Korean YMCA buildings in Tokyo and Seoul. The event in Tokyo was attended by around 250 people, including the South Korean Minister of Patriots and Veterans Affairs, Biegun. The ceremony at the YMCA in downtown Seoul was attended by around 400 people. At the event in Tokyo, the head of the Patriots and Veterans Affairs Ministry expressed her deepest respect for those who participated in the February 8th Independence Declaration and helped create today's Republic of Korea. She also visited several locations in Japan important to the independence movement. Those included the sites of 2 failed attempts by Korean activists to assassinate the Japanese emperor using grenades, one in 1924 by Kim Ji-seop and Seo Seong-han, and another famous attempt in 1931 by Lee Bong-chang for which he was hanged. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
Regarding this special occasion, President Moon Jae-in delivered a message via his Facebook page welcoming the joint centennial ceremony held in both Seoul and Tokyo. He described the Independence Declaration of February 8th in 1919 issued by young Korean students in Tokyo as the tinderbox that led to the March 1st independence movement throughout Korea. The president said young Korean independence fighters will always be remembered and urged citizens to follow suit in commemoration. At the nation's top office, President Moon Jae-in held a luncheon with the heads of municipal governments. The South Korean leader once again stressed the need to boost local economies and call for greater efforts to create jobs. Hwang Ho-jun shares with us his remarks.
To the more than 200 city mayors, county governors, and heads of district offices gathered at the Blue House, President Moon made it very clear. A prosperous nation begins at the grassroots level.
정부가 목표로 하는 혁신적 포용 국가가 성공하기 위해서는 무엇보다 지역이 잘 살아야 합니다. 정부는 지역 경제의 활력을 되찾는 일에 역점을 두고 있습니다.
President Moon said the government will spend $21.4 billion this year to boost investment in R&D, cultivate regionally strategic industries, and expand social infrastructure in rural areas. The president noted the concerns about the government's plan to skip so-called feasibility studies to speed up urgent infrastructure projects. But he insisted it's meant to make regional development more balanced and promised to work closely with municipal governments and uphold strict standards when implementing said policy. President Moon also pledged to continue his push to give more autonomy to local governments, including more power to levy their own taxes. As a quid pro quo, local governments must do more to create jobs.
지자체가 스스로 일자리를 만들고 규제를 혁신할 때 지역 경제가 살아날 수 있습니다.
He once again highlighted last Thursday's launch of a joint venture by Hyundai Motor Group and the city of Gwangju, calling it an achievement that will lead to the recovery of the local economy and the creation of quality jobs. He said the administration will support such projects in other regions as well. In fact, Presidential Senior Secretary for Job Creation Chung Tae-ho said in a press briefing the same day that the country can expect to see more similar joint ventures between local governments and companies in the near future, at least 2 more to be realized within the first half of the year. The meeting was the first of its kind since President Moon took office, but his efforts to get the nation's sluggish economy going again will continue next week in Busan when he attends a conference on building up smart cities as part of his tour to boost local economies. He'll be meeting with small business owners next week as well. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange reserves rose to a fresh high last month, mainly due to a weaker dollar, just over $405 billion in January, according to data from the nation's central bank, an increase of almost $2 billion from the month before. The total value of Seoul's foreign currency holdings has been spiking for 3 straight months. Bank of Korea attributed the trend to a depreciation of the greenback, which means a jump in the value of other currencies when converted into dollars. In general, FX reserves are held to back up the national currency in case of devaluation. As of the end of December, South Korea had the 8th biggest foreign exchange reserves in the world, with China topping that list. Comprised of 80 members, the African Development Bank is one of the biggest financial institutions in the region. Its goal, creating a pool of knowledge to support various projects, as well as economic growth and development on the continent. Our Kim Ji-yeon sat down with the incumbent president of the bank to discuss the partnership between Korea and Africa.
Hello, President Akinwumi Adesina. Thank you for sitting down with me.
Great pleasure to be with you.
And it goes without saying that the potential of Africa's economies is immense, as you said, with the vast natural resources and all these developments of diverse cultures and geographic advantages. Some of the aspects South Korea relatively lacks, in my opinion. In the case of Korea, it was a donor recipient country, and it has developed immensely over the past several decades. What does that process, industrialization process, mean for Africa?
Yeah, you know, every time I look at Korea, I'm always amazed. I look at the per capita GDP of Korea in 1960-63. It was $100 per person. You look at it today, it's about 31,000. And the key is, the lesson from that is that vision matters, political commitment matters, consistency matters. So we have, fantastic partnership with the government of Korea in many areas. In a joint thing funded by Quafec with us in Tunisia, where they're using drones technology to help with monitoring the potential of agriculture all across Tunisia. I want to see a lot of joint ventures between our young people and those in Korea. So that's just some of the things that we are trying to make a partnership, not an aid-dependent partnership. I don't believe that Africa will ever develop with aid. No, Africa will develop by the discipline of investment, and that's what we are trying to do.
Okay, we'll go on with South Korea hosted the annual meeting of the African Development Bank last year. What particularly stood out is that member states call for coherent, consistent policies that can withstand changing African governments. Do you think governance reform is key in carrying out the developmental goals set by the bank?
For me, one of my memories from Busan was the great Coafec meeting we had to discuss with Korea about, first and foremost, learning from Korea's own experience, and then looking for financial agreements or cooperative agreements or what we can do together to fast-track Africa's development. Stability is really key. Policy consistency is key. Africa is actually doing so well right now in terms of that. You see a lot of democratic elections being held. 1/3 of all the global business, investment, regulatory reforms were actually done in Africa. So the environment for investment couldn't be better.
Seoul's initiatives in Africa, such as the 새마을운동 movement, I don't know if you've heard of it, Korea-Africa Aid and Investment and the Knowledge Sharing Program are being carried out. Do you think these initiatives are helpful in strengthening inclusive growth in Africa?
Absolutely. I think the Sumelindong is a great program. It's a program that allows people to see that they can do great things by having confidence in themselves, and also how they work together, the sense of community. The countries where we've worked on this together, like we have it in Ethiopia, we have it in Cote d'Ivoire, it's been very, very successful.
Equatorial Guinea is to host this year's annual meeting in Malabo. What do you expect in the next round?
The focus is going to be on regional integration and this year. And of course, regional integration is so important because Africa just launched the Continental Free Trade Area. That Continental Free Trade Area is going to be worth $3.3 trillion. That is the largest free trade area in the world since the WTO was created in 1940. So that tells you that there's a lot of opportunities in various sectors across Africa.
Thank you for your time, President Alesina.
Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure being with you.
Moving on to other stories now. During the Lunar New Year holidays, a daily average of more than 200,000 travelers were seen at Incheon International Airport. On February 2nd, the daily passenger count was tallied at 225,000, the highest since the nation's main air hub opened. According to the Incheon International Airport Corporation, a total of 1.4 million people used the airport during the Lunar New Year holiday week from February 1st to the 7th. The airport operator said the average number of daily passengers was up 6% compared to last year's Lunar New Year holidays. South Korea's 14 other airports, excluding Incheon, were also jam-packed with travelers, totaling 1.6 million during the holiday period. South Korea's main opposition Liberty Korea Party will hold a national convention on February 27th as initially scheduled. The Conservative Party has been reviewing the possibility of changing the date as it overlaps with the upcoming Pyeongyang-Washington summit. There were concerns that the event where the party will pick its new leader would be overshadowed by the summit, especially at a time when the LKP is enjoying an uptick in its approval rating. The party said they can't change the schedule based on external events, adding that they will do their best under the given circumstances. Challenges could be in store as a number of key candidates in the running for party leadership had warned of a boycott if the date wasn't changed. A South Korean deep-sea fishing vessel was seized in waters near Argentina for allegedly violating the country's exclusive economic zone. The nation's fishery ministry said Friday that an Argentinian patrol boat seized a fishing vessel owned by Sajo Oyang Company around 7 a.m. Korea time. The vessel is currently being escorted to a nearby port. A total of 44 sailors, including 10 Korean nationals, were on board, reportedly to catch squid near the Falkland Islands. while Argentina claims the fishing boat violated its EEZ. Seoul's Fisheries Ministry has disputed this claim. Sajo Ouyang Company is set to dispatch a team of negotiators on Saturday to settle the issue with authorities there. South Korea is set to launch another geostationary weather satellite. This time it's to track pollutants like the fine dust that's been suffocating the nation and to find out where it's coming from. Choi Young gets us better acquainted with the Cheolyan 2B.
The satellite called the Cheolyan 2B will be the twin of the Cheolyan 2A launched a month ago. Both of them are geostationary satellites orbiting directly above the equator aligned with the Earth's rotation. The 2A is used to predict sudden weather changes like tracking the eye of a typhoon. But the Cheolyan 2B monitors pollutants in the atmosphere. It'll be able to determine the trajectory of fine dust, which has been affecting the country severely in recent weeks. The new satellite will also monitor in real time chemical substances in the air above the Korean peninsula and keep track of temperature changes on the surface of the adjacent seas. Its cameras can produce images with 4 times the resolution of Korea's first weather satellite launched almost a decade ago. The Cheolyan 2B will be fully assembled by the end of March and launched within this year. And Korea hopes it'll help discover new solutions to the worsening fine dust. Choi Young, Arirang News.
A year has passed since a North Korean art troupe performed in front of a South Korean audience on the eve of the 2018 Pyeongyang Winter Olympics. To mark the anniversary of that event, a peace concert is being held in the country's eastern coastal city of Gangneung. Our Won Jung-wan is coming to us live from the scene. Jung-wan, I remember you were right there back then, and now what is the atmosphere like today?
Hi, Daniel. Indeed, exactly a year ago, I was right here reporting about the historic visit by a North Korean art troupe. The first time they visit South Korean soil in almost 16 years. Returning back at Gangneung, it seems that almost everything has changed the same and stayed the same. For example, the weather itself, it's freezing cold right here, and just like a year ago. But some things have changed as well, one of which is that North Korean art troupe that performed last year here at Gangneung Art Center won't be able to attend this year's festivities. The Gangwon-do provincial government had asked the North Korea's participation, but claimed they received no replies from Pyeongyang. That's slightly unfortunate, but there's no need to feel down because the atmosphere from last year will be recreated through the performances of renowned musicians from both home and abroad. At the peace concert, which has just kicked off behind me here, the Prime Philharmonic Orchestra will perform their own style rendition of a Korean folk song called Arirang. In front of an audience of some 900 South Korean citizens, they will orchestrate both the South and North Korean versions of the folk song, featuring top-class musicians such as soprano Im Seon-hae and violinist Kim Da-mi. Following this performance by local artists, the concert's theme of peace will be further evoked by a performance from Amal, an internationally renowned duo comprising of an Israeli and Palestine pianist. So at the start of today's peace concert at Gangneung, various events will be held across Gangwon-do province until February 17th, and under the name of, again, Pyeongchang. And that's all for me today, but I'll be back tomorrow with more news on the events commemorating the anniversary event of 2018 Pyeongchang.
All right, John, thank you for out there braving the cold for us. We appreciate it. Seoul recorded the lowest reading as we enter the new year, marking minus 10 degrees Celsius. It seems like the weather is about to get even colder overnight. So let's go to our Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you'll need before planning your weekend. Michelle?
Yes, Daniel, a cold northwesterly wind has kept the mercury at sub-zero levels all day long in Seoul today. Now, the readings will only plummet further into the night, but keep in mind that the wind chill factor will make it feel 3 to 4 degrees colder than the actual readings. Now, Saturday afternoon will be cold as today. The nation will be under partly cloudy skies, while Beijing will stay cloudy, and Tokyo should expect a major snowfall tomorrow. And Seoul will wake up to another freezing cold morning tomorrow, with temperatures plummeting to -8 degrees Celsius, but temperatures get milder as we approach the southern regions. And into the day, the temperatures in Seoul will rise up to about -1 degrees, but it won't make it into positive, and while the rest of the country will make it into the positive territory. Now, starting next week, temperatures should slowly rise, bouncing back up to the seasonal averages under mostly clear skies. Now, with no signs of precipitation, dry conditions will dominate the forecast across the country, so please be safe on the watch out for any kinds of fires. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you in tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Thank you for staying with us. Hope you have a warm and safe weekend.